Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
I'm so glad the snow didn't keep us away from one another. So I want to start, Tim, with you. You know, you wake up every morning to pursue really building what is, you know, ultimately the best identity graph in the industry, right? That's your pursuit. And tell me about the genesis of that. Where did it start? Like, what was the opportunity statement that sort of drives a lot of what 4Info is building and how you're building it and approaching it?
Yeah, it actually started way back in the digital days, right? We call that 2011. So for a lot of you, that was way back, where advertisers came to us and said they really wanted proof that an impression delivered on a mobile device could actually drive somebody into a store and purchase something, and you could measure it. And so we built a platform that enabled that. And actually, the identity graph was an accident that came out of a really good other idea. But the identity graph is what we built. It allowed us to tie mobile devices and then other connected devices within the household via an IP address and be able to do this at tremendous scale. TV came along and presented us with a whole new opportunity that allowed us to do what we'd been doing in digital for years, which is providing one-to-one level targeting right down at that household level, but being able to really measure business outcomes, true business outcomes. Did you buy more toothpaste today than you did before you started running the media? So we get up every day excited that this old TV industry is now in a major transition to something that we have been doing and perfecting for years on the digital side.
So one of the things that I think is valuable to understand is your perspective. Help us distill, because when we say TV, that is a collective term today, right? Which is what is significantly different about where we are as an industry. So where does traditional sort of GRP spot-based television, national age, sort of gender demo-based television buys, where does that fit into the advanced television, what the advanced television sort of identity graph affords a marketer? How does that all come together?
Yeah, it's kind of the difference between the Stone Age and Star Trek. There are so many people in this room that remember living with Nielsen rating systems, and no offense, Nielsen, if you're in the room, you built a great currency in this industry, but quite frankly, it's seen its day, and there is a place where you really care about mass reach, and for example, chocolate, right? Do you have to target chocolate buyers when 80% of America buys chocolate? So I think that sort of broad-based demo GRP type currency is probably okay. But where the world's really going today is being able to prove that viewership leads to a business outcome. So for those advertisers who are wanting to know there's no waste, they're looking for a better fraud-free, non-skippable, full-length viewing experience for their customers, that's what addressable and connected TV brings to this industry.
So, Walt, to thread the needle through there, what Tim sort of talked about as a promise, and then what you've got is in the data, you can actually find the signal. So tell us a little about what you're seeing in the wealth of data that TiVo has, please.
Yeah, so fundamentally, what we've put together over the last couple of years is a very large population of set-top box viewership data, the Stone Age portion. So if we're going to call traditional broadcast television that, so yes, while the currency may be largely Nielsen GRPs, we can now use set-top box data to understand what then is at the granular level of viewership. So with all of this set-top box data that is in every DMA, it's nationally representative. The most important thing is having the rights. It's having the rights to that data to match it to an identity graph like Tim's, so then we can truly take all of the viewership experiences in linear television and understand how they are impacting other media, whether it's connected TV, whether it's mobile or desktop. Because I fundamentally think that the big news with all of this, with the identity graph, is television is now playing nicely with the other children in the media ecosystem, which has not historically been the case. So, if you went and talked to a digital buyer, they understand the world of true one-to-one targeting, measurement, frequency capping, reach, et cetera. And they've lived in that world from day one. And then TV has lived in the GRP world, and the digital people just sort of said, look, those TV people are over there, and I don't understand what they're talking about. They're the dinosaurs, they're the Stone Age, and I can't understand how these two media really interact. So the fundamental thing that has changed is that we have a whole wealth of data with the rights to that data to match to identity graphs, so that we can not only measure, but then even use the viewership, the exposure to ads in linear television to do targeting, activation, and other media, and really make these platforms all work together.
So I actually want to double click on that because I want to really understand, right? Because I want to understand what you guys are doing together and then how we can leverage that as an industry. So there is, I've sort of heard two sides of the camp, right? One is sort of linear TV is Stone Age. The other is actually what this identity graph affords is the opportunity to amplify and enhance the value of traditional television buying. So,
And I think it's to understand it better. I think that's because we now have more information, more granular information about broadcast linear television.
But I think that's important, right? Because it's two different sort of blueprints for how you approach the business, right? One is where traditional TV buying remains sort of a tempo, if you will, an anchor in a media plan or a media mix. And then the other is the sort of a shift of some unique advertisers and marketers that really will start just to sort of invest on a performance basis from a media buying perspective, right? So can you guys paint a picture? I mean, Tim, I think it probably good start with you. Tell me how you serve them differently, because I think that's really important, because it's a different set of optics with which you look at your media mix as a marketer and an advertiser.
So, sorry for the Stone Age comment for all you people living in the Stone Age. Walt's right. The thing that's exciting about, we just launched a partnership that there will be some press on in the next couple weeks, I guess, that now allows brands to be able to use all of this viewership data that's been captured, via traditional linear delivery models, and be able to use that data on a one-to-one basis at scale. So it's not a panel; it's a whole bunch of households that you have actual viewership data on. And so this actually is pretty exciting because we can bring what we would call the old Stone Age into the current day by being able to link in on a one-to-one basis viewership data. And then being able to take that data and couple it with other data about people in the household or the households gives you one of the richest data sets, whether it's telling you who's in market for a car or who cares about watching the next episode of, I don't watch TV, New Amsterdam. Thank you. One of those shows. So I think that's really exciting. Walt and I were talking about this before. One of the challenges we have in this industry is the people who have traditionally bought TV are residing in two separate camps, right? Well, one distinct camp that's always bought television under a certain currency, which is a GRP rating currency, and now folks who are starting to buy addressable and connected TV, which is on a one-to-one basis that's highly measurable. And so we try to treat them the same, but have to talk to them completely differently. And one of the biggest challenges we have is helping people who are traditional digital buyers who know how to buy what we sell work with traditional TV buyers who don't understand the measurement piece alone. It's easy to understand that you can target, but how do I take the measurement capabilities we have now and translate that into something that I, as an agency, can actually get paid for?
So, Walt, tell me a little bit about how we're leveraging sort of, TiVo's data portfolio, bringing that together with what Tim's offering is. How are you making marketers better, faster, stronger in regards to being able to deliver outcomes?
Yeah, the twofold. One is we take this wealth of viewership data and we create all sorts of standardized and custom segments from it. we make those segments available through direct relationships with DSPs, through distributors, and so forth, and agencies, and especially programmatic buyers. So think about this, programmatic buyers playing in the world of using TV data is a very new phenomenon. We've been doing a lot of education around that. But they're using the TV viewership data audience segments to then activate against other media. And we've made that very easy for them to do. And then they can do the full-on measurement. So all of the households who are exposed on your campaign on linear, here are all of the individual household IDs. They go into an identity graph. They can go to any measurement attribution company. So it is, our fundamental goal has been to make all of this TV viewership data and traditional linear television very accessible to programmatic and digital buyers and DSPs. And it is the uptick is happening. It's been a big education process. And before we go on, I just want to add one thing about the Stone Age or the dinosaur comment. And Ashley, you've said that should broadcast linear television sort of serve as the foundation of a media campaign? I think it should. And if we just break this down into economics, yes, for digital people, and you say you can't do one-to-one unicast targeting on broadcast television, and so the reaction is, well, then I don't want anything to do with it. But if you peel back the economics and say the CPMs on broadcast television are the most efficient media vehicle for broad reach that we've got. Now, you can't do one-to-one targeting, but it's an incredibly efficient media vehicle. And now if I can truly understand the underlying detailed viewership within that vehicle and measure it, and if I'm potentially not reaching completely the audience that I want through that vehicle, then I can supplement that with other media that is truly one-to-one targeted. And by the way, a 2 to 3x higher CPM, so you're paying a premium for it, then, or even higher, then that's the way that people should be, that's the way that this, as an industry, we should be thinking about this. We shouldn't be thinking about, this is the old school, this is bad, this is new, this is good. It's understand the economics of what you get across all these different properties and learn how to get the most of them. And that comes from the data. So
that's a great question, and that leads me to where I wanted to head next, which is ultimately, I think at a point in time, this is how I think sometimes you can distill our industry, although we like to make it really hard and complex because it serves us. It is really simple. We're selling more things to more people in more places, and buyers are using data and technology to drive down price. Right?
And in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah, I've said, and that's exactly my question. So I've said this time and time again, and so I think that begs two questions. One, what you're talking about is ultimately a ever increasingly complex value chain. So at the early stage, you typically have more intermediaries in the middle, which make it harder. So who's going to orchestrate that? Does that fall to the agency? Does that fall to the marketer? Or do you have to share that responsibility in order to empower your data to actually activate value? And the second question is then ultimately, how do you ensure the economics pan out so everybody in the value chain is incentivized to productize their inventory using these data sets to deliver the ROI that marketers want? Because specifically for television, there's an inherent disincentive when you start to peel back the numbers because of the efficiency of TV today for them. So let's start with the orchestration, and then maybe, Walt, you can address the economics.
Yeah, orchestration, I think, is everybody's responsibility. I don't think it necessarily just sits with the agency. We deal with them all day, every day, or our partners do, and it's a hard job. It's a hard job trying to not only figure out, what works, but how to make it work, and then how to explain it to your client so that it's digestible, comprehensible, and then they can actually measure it. But I think those of us who've actually created these platforms have a significant responsibility in educating the market on how best to use them. I think it's the agency's responsibility to really understand the best way to buy them and execute them and be able to explain it back to their brands. But at the end of the day, I guess the ultimate responsibility, if you had to push it somewhere, it's with the brands. The brands need to really understand what's available. They have to, push their agencies to be able to buy it, be able to explain it, and they need to definitely hold platforms accountable to deliver it. But it's a complex problem that I think is very exciting now by virtue of us being able to stitch together broadcast linear with much more sophisticated digital buying techniques that does make the next problem harder. How do you price it?
So, Walt, how do we make the economics work for everybody?
Fundamentally, you got to understand what is the contribution of each piece of the media buy to the business outcomes. And that is not a simple task. In fact, the recent 4A SIM report came out with, I think there are at least 20 different companies in the TV attribution world. So all of this data has now enabled a whole new industry to really come together called TV attribution, which is then linking together what we've been talking about, broadcast television, connected TV, addressable television, mobile, desktop, and so forth. And then how do we get the right value attributed to each part of that value chain? Because only then can you understand, is this part of the media buy make sense economically? I think the key thing to that is the buy side has got to own that. There's a lot of capabilities that are being sold by the sell side, and because the sell side has an incentive to say, I will do an attribution study, and as part of that, that I'll include that as the media buy, so you can prove agency to your brand that my media actually performed for you, and you should keep buying more of it. So there's an inherent, just not to criticize sort of, one's doing something right or one's doing something wrong, but there's just an inherent bias in that approach. And I think the challenge that we've got is the agency and the brand needs to have that unbiased measurement and attribution, but the challenge is they frequently don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that creates this...
And unbiased typically has bias.
And unbiased, and it does create these complexities. It does create bias. And in a perfect world, all agencies would allocate a portion of their media spend to do all of this, but they'd rather spend the money on media, and that's the world we live in.
So I think the great thing is, again, simplicity is no matter what event it is, it's the same consistent thematic. That collaboration and transparency is what is required as sort of foundation to accelerate the industry. Thank you, gentlemen, for leading the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you.